This video is a revision video for Mise-en-scene for the GCSE media exam. Okay, because this is the one area where loads of you lost crucial marks, and it's by far the easiest place in the whole exam to get crucial marks, it's where I'm going to begin my breakdown of the GCSE exam. Remember, this is for question 2 of the exam, under the subheading Mise-en-scene. So here goes. Right, Mise-en-scene is French, which literally translated into English means what's in the scene. In other words, everything you see. The French film critics of the 1950s were the smartest of them all, and they all saw film not just as a form of entertainment, but an art form easily on the same level as, say, a painting or photography. Mise-en-scene includes pretty much everything you see on screen. This includes set design and locations, lighting, space, composition, i.e. how everything is framed, costume, makeup and hairstyles, acting, including body language and facial expressions. Let's look at these one by one, but we're going to keep it very specific to the exam itself, and so we're going to keep within the action-adventure genre. Set design and locations. Let's keep this simple. Anything that takes place outside of a building is a location. If it's inside, like an apartment or a warehouse or whatever, then it's a set. Sets are artificial filming locations usually done within a film studio. Sets can also look like they're outside, but usually this is CGI. Locations are actual recognisable places like towns and cities. Most of the time in action-adventure films, they will make it very obvious where the location is, by either an on-screen caption and or using an establishing shot of a famous landmark from a particular city. The locations in action-adventure films will always be exciting, exotic and dangerous, so don't hold your breath for an action-adventure film to be shot in Sevenoaks, because Sevenoaks is none of those. Lighting. The intensity, direction and quality of lighting can influence an audience's understanding of characters, actions, themes and mood. Colourful use of lighting will usually suggest something fun, exciting and or good, like the hero. Dark use of lighting will usually suggest something unpleasant, dangerous and or evil, like the villain. It's really that simple. But be careful, some action-adventure films like the Bourne movies or Captain Phillips don't use much artificial lighting effects. This was not an accident. Paul Greengrass, the very influential British director of both those films, began his career making documentaries, and so he still uses the realistic aspects of documentary filmmaking even though he now makes blockbuster movies in Hollywood. This is why you can see a lot of shaky camera work and lots of whip pans in his work. Because when you film real life, as you do in documentary, you have to be ready to point your camera at where the action is at a second's notice. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself, so I'm going to pull back for a moment. The last thing to bear in mind is that there are two kinds of lighting. High-key lighting, when the film is bright and everything is clear to see. Low-key lighting, when the film is shady and everything is a little harder to see. That is it. That's all you need to know in terms of lighting. Space. Space is simple. How far apart are the characters from one another? How far apart are the characters from the objects around them? Space is usually used in action-adventure films to ramp up tension. For instance, how close is the character to actually touching that treasure they've spent the whole film searching for? Characters in action-adventure films are constantly invading each other's personal space, usually by either beating each other up, or else it's the hero kissing the love interest. Either way, these are dramatic actions which are dramatic because they close the space between one character and another. In other words, getting up close and personal, whether that be with a punch or a kiss. Sometimes both. Composition. Composition literally means how the camera frames the scene. Most importantly, it tells us which characters are important and who isn't. For instance, the composition will usually make the hero front and centre of the frame, keeping the audience focused on them, whereas people like the extras will be more distant in the frame, so out of the audience's focus. It's as simple as that. Costume. Costume simply refers to the clothes that characters wear. Using certain colours or designs, costumes in narrative cinema are used to signify characters or to make clear distinctions between characters. Our appearance tells other people a lot about us. Except for uniforms, we choose our own clothing, and this in turn tells other people a lot about us, even if that isn't actually our intention. Makeup and hairstyles. This is quite important in terms of the representation of gender. Generally speaking, women in action-adventure films will have makeup, but makeup can also be used on men in action-adventure films to convey illness or some such. Very rarely to do anything to do with beauty. Hairstyles tend to be gender-specific too. Men will generally have short hair and women will have long hair, and therefore the stereotypical representations of both genders are maintained within this genre. If women have short hair in action films, they are generally being represented as masculine and therefore not attractive in a stereotypical sense. Likewise, men are generally represented with short hair, unless there is a specific reason why they would have long hair, i.e. like Thor in the adventure movies. Acting. Men will act aggressively, and so will their body language. Even if they're not being actually violent, they will still probably act aggressively in order to solve a problem they are having, even if this just means they are rushing around. Women can also act aggressively, sure, but in the stereotypical action-adventure film, they will generally be passive and or sexualized. Most of the time, the female sidekick in such films will mostly be looking at the hero and waiting for their cue on how they should get out of trouble they're in. They may contribute with ideas though, or even save the hero, and therefore the overall mission. Having said that, more and more women are now taking centre stage in action-adventure films, but I think you'll find they are still trading on sexuality and attractiveness rather than acting ability. Hey, don't shoot the messenger, that's Hollywood unfortunately. The masculinity of the hero will never be in doubt though, but the villain will lose theirs when they are defeated. And in fact, the masculinity of the hero will be multiplied by his victory, just as the villain's is decimated by his defeat. So there you go. I've kept it as simple as I could, so now there is no excuse not to answer this section in the exam anymore. Like I said, it's really the easiest of them all because you literally say what you see and why it is important. Remember, what effect does it have on the audience? And that's that.